Welcome to another episode of Detox Digest with Dr. Morse's Healing Herbs.
Woohoo! All right, welcome again. And whether you're a seasoned detox enthusiast, just starting your wellness journey, or anywhere in between, Detox Digest is your go-to resource for gathering the knowledge and tools to support your body's natural cleansing and healing processes using diet herbs and Dr. Morse's formulas. I'm Jenn Billingham.
And I'm Colleen Bingham. So far this year, we've covered the urinary, immune, lymphatic, digestive, endocrine, nervous system. We're running out of systems here. For archived blogs and webinar recordings on those systems, visit our Body Systems blog tab under the Learn tab at drmorses.com. Today, we continue our discussion on whole body detoxification with a deep dive into the circulatory system and the heart.
Yes, so grab your favorite herbal tea and let's begin. Stay tuned for valuable insights into the circulatory system. And yeah, let's just take it from there, Colleen.
Yes, let's do this. Okay, great. Well, of course, none of us would be here without this man, Dr. Morse, whose life work it is to unlock the body's natural ability to heal by supporting its regenerative and detoxification processes. Of course, we have folks visiting us here today who are very familiar with this man and have been detoxing with him for many, many years. We welcome you, and we welcome anyone that's new to Dr. Morse's. We're so happy to have you here. Also, feel free to ask questions throughout the webinar. As Cameron mentioned, you've got a little button on your screen that should be a little talking button. You can type your questions in there, and we have the wonderful Kim and Stephanie here to field all of those questions throughout the webinar. We have a special guest today, Toni Weel, so we probably won't have time to hit any of your questions up at the very end, but we still want to try to get to those if we can. And if you do have an unanswered question that you are dying to ask us, you can always email us at info@dmhhc.com. And of course, stick around till the end. We have another, well, it's not the urinary system. I haven't updated that slide since the very first time we did this back in February or whatever that was. Okay, so discounts on all circulatory systems will be at the very end. We have a great discount code for you. You know the drill. So stay tuned, of course, until the end.
Yes, and on today's agenda, we are going to review the circulatory system anatomy and physiology, going over the heart, the blood, the circulation, and its role in detoxification. And then we're going to break it down a little bit more and review some herbal protocols and for the heart and keeping the blood healthy, vascular integrity. And if we've got time, we'll have some additional therapeutics we'll go over. But yeah, let's dive right in, shall we?
Diving in, I love that analogy
Yes.
because I really feel like the circulatory system is all about the waterways of the body. Here you have this image of a river passing through a dry landscape, and you just think about the waterways of the body being the blood, right? So first of all, in traditional Chinese medicine, I always like to say this is what is the season and what is the organ of that season. We're still in summer, just for a little bit longer, and the heart is still the organ that we're talking about. Think about the heart, think about the heat of summer kind of liquefying the blood and getting things moving. Everybody's dancing, everybody's out in the sunshine. So definitely a lot of heart care and heart healing and also circulatory support. And also the other organ of this time of year is the small intestine. So what it connects those two things is the blood vessels, right? Blood contains, the body contains about 60,000 miles of blood vessels. Just imagine that. Inside
Well,
your body is a total universe, right? And so of that blood, most of your blood is plasma. It's the liquid part of blood. And so blood is about 51% water on average, and that's mostly plasma. The blood is made up of 55% plasma. And so of that plasma, 92% is water, and the rest is blood cells and other materials. So water is a big component of the circulatory system. And when you do that macrocosm that I like to do when we're talking about these systems and ourselves in relation to nature, you look at the waterways of the earth and how it rains, this water's collected at sea, it comes into the inland areas and it rains down, and all that water grabs all these nutrients from deep inside those composting forests. and just like lets it all out through these waterways and those tributaries. And as you can see from this image, those little tributaries are going into that landscape and nourishing that land with those minerals. And we have a lot of dams, especially in the United States, that are holding water. And this can happen in the body too. Things get stuck. A dam can build up and things are held and stagnation forms there. And just as the ecosystem of our country and maybe the world could be opened up by opening those dams and letting that water run free. Same with inside our bodies. How do we open up those systems and get that blood flowing again? And Jen's going to talk more about that with detoxification.
Yep, absolutely. And hopefully you've had a chance to read the blog about the circulatory system for this month. And if you haven't, highly encourage you to do that, because one of the first sentences is the blood is our life force. Dr. Morse has that in his Detox Miracle Source book too. And as we progress through all of these body systems, and now that we get to the circulatory system, we see how it plays. I mean, every body system does, but this one in particular plays a crucial role in detoxification because the blood is our life force, because it moves oxygen and nutrients to nourish our cells for them to perform their functions. And supporting this really allows various organs that are involved in toxin and waste removal to perform their functions. For example, like the liver, this is where toxins are pretty much processed and neutralized, and it converts them into these less harmful substances so they can be excreted out of the body, whether it's through bile or urine. The kidneys, we know how important they are, and the lymph system, how they take that cellular debris. There's bacteria, viruses, waste. And even there is blood waste. You think of carbon dioxide, that's all has to be moved out of the body. Anything excess that the cells can't use from, their, metabolic processes has to be moved out. Remember creatinine when we talked about that, and urea in the kidney webinar? Well, it all comes down to that. So now we get to see how the blood supplies and nourishes all these other, body systems to perform their functions. And really, it is your life force. This is how it helps you detox. It's important to have your kidneys in your lymph, but you need your blood. You can't live without your blood.
Oh gosh.
So
Absolutely.
let's go.
Beautiful. Well said, Jen.
Okay. So yeah, the primary role is of the circulatory system. It is to transport essential substances like oxygen, nutrients, hormones throughout your body. It plays that vital role in maintaining homeostasis by ensuring that all cells and tissues receive their necessary resources for their functions. And yeah, that waste products are definitely removed efficiently. So we won't get too involved in the heart anatomy and physiology, because if you've ever taken an A&P course, man, this is one of the thickest sections in an A&P book. I remember that, part of the portion of my semester 1 year. Oh my goodness. So
Fascinating organ.
It really is. And when you take a look at the image on the screen, it is the central organ of the cardiovascular system. It's very muscular. It's the size of your fist, and it's slightly to the left of the center. Not like you can see it because my microphone's in the way. And it does consist of 2 atria above and 2 ventricles below. You can think of atria A above and the ventricles are below. And you also have the supply of blood, your arteries. Think of arteries take blood away from the heart, again, the A, and veins bring blood back to the heart. The exception would kind of be the lungs. When we talk about that next month, we'll dive into we'll do it a little bit on the next slide, but the pulmonary veins and whatnot. But let's go over this. Your heart will beat about 2.5 billion times in your lifetime, and it beats 54 million before birth. So by the end of the 8th week, the fetal heart is fully formed with all 4 of these chambers, the atria and the ventricles, and the major blood vessels in place. And at this stage, it's capable of pumping blood, although the circulatory system is not yet quite mature. And the heart's electrical system is responsible for regulating its rhythm. It can create enough electrical voltage to power a small flashlight. That's crazy. That is just so crazy. I'll think about that next time I have to go outside and with my small flashlight. So the heart can respond. It's like, I could power this. All right. So like Iron Man but I can only do a flashlight. All right. Getting off topic. So the heart can respond to emotions. Stress, fear, happiness can all affect heart rate and rhythm. So aside from our physical aspect, we have that emotional and mental side, and with cleansing, we all are very well aware. We go in it with the physical, but then we got to think of the other aspects. So enter the adrenals. They play a primary role in how strong the heart pumps and its rhythm. Adrenaline is released into the bloodstream as part of that fight or flight response. And adrenaline is that potent hormone, if you remember from our endocrine webinar, that has a direct effect on the heart. When it binds to specific receptors in the heart muscle, it causes several changes. Okay. Increased heart rate. Adrenaline speeds up the heart rate, leading to a faster heartbeat. Increased contractility. So it enhances the force of each heart contraction, leading to stronger and more efficient pumping of blood. Like if Colleen's running away from a bear, she kind of needs that heart pumping pretty rapidly. And dilation of blood vessels. Adrenaline causes blood vessels in the muscles to dilate, allowing for more blood to flow to the muscles.
Mm-hmm. Pretty crazy.
Did you want to add anything?
No, this is great. I mean, the heart, it's pumping. It has a two-part pump. It's got four different sections to it with the blood moving. It's just so intelligent. It's just amazing to me. And so then
absolutely.
Once we talk about, and we have herbs for the heart, so we'll talk about those in a minute, but then let's talk about the blood. So what's going on in the blood? I was already just geeking out on it a second ago because I'm so into just how much of the blood is made of water. It's actually looking like some slides up ahead are missing their images, but let's get to that when we get to it. But Jen's going to go into that in just a minute. So the blood is the fluid connective tissue that flows through the cardiovascular system. It consists of red blood cells and white blood cells, platelets, and plasma. And so keep in mind, red blood cells carry oxygen via hemoglobin, which is part of a red blood cell, and it's a red-colored particle or protein, excuse me. So the blood cells appear red because of hemoglobin, a protein found on red blood cells, and it contains a red-colored compound called heme. Hemoglobin carries oxygen from the lungs to the body's tissues and cells, and then it also is what collects that carbon dioxide and returns it to the heart and the lungs to be expelled from the body. So there is that. And then how do you break down the vessels of blood? So as I talked about this earlier, there are 60,000 miles of blood vessels in the body. And that's more than twice the Earth's circumference if you were to lay them all out and stretch them across the Earth. So talk about a web, a very intricate web of movement happening in your body, where this blood is starting out. So blood vessel is the overarching term for all of the different types of vessels that are flowing through the body, and then we're going to break those down. So you have your arteries, your veins, and your capillaries, okay? So artery away is the way that you remember this. Arteries are taking that oxygenated blood away from the heart and out into the body, and then the veins are returning that blood. So then you've got the capillary beds, which are these little zones down in here, if I can find my cursor. These little zones down here are the capillary beds. We'll get more into those in a moment, but those are where the arteries and the veins get very, very thin and highly permeable, and where that fluid from the blood plasma ends up going into circulation with lymph and into the tissues and nourishes the tissues. So hopefully by now, if you've been attending these webinars, you'll remember capillaries are where all the action happens. That's where all this exchange of nutrients and waste and fluid is happening. So of course, the bloodstream and the blood vessels contain all these capillary beds throughout the entire body. And so I'm not sure if these images are going to show up for you all. I'm sorry about that. It's basically showing the composition of blood plasma, but I don't really want to restart this right now.
I can describe it. It's all right.
I mean, maybe I could probably try to restart it while you're explaining it, but are you good with that, Jen? Do you have notes on your end? Okay. Cool.
Yeah, I should be fine. Yeah.
Cool.
All right. So once Colleen gets this, booted up a little bit, what you're going to see on the screen is a vial of blood. So if you've ever gone and had blood drawn, which I'm sure many of us have, you basically, when they separate it and they test it, it's basically broken down of plasma. About 55% of the volume of blood is plasma. It primarily serves as a transport medium for blood cells and various substances such as the nutrients, the hormones, yes, and some waste products, because there are still cells in there, metabolic processes, they have waste that need to be removed. That's where the lymph system comes in to take that up. Colleen's going to go over that shortly too. So plasma also plays a crucial role in maintaining that blood pressure and that ever neutral pH balance that we need to survive. So plasma is 55%. So what is that 55% of plasma made up of? It's 92% water and 8% nutrients, proteins, ions, gases, and again, metabolic byproduct. So lymphatic fluid, when it's carried into the bloodstream, becomes part of the blood plasma. And woohoo, see, there you go. Now you can see what it looks like. So blood plasma is that yellowish fluid component of the blood that makes up about 55%, again, of that total blood volume. All right, and yeah, the red blood cells, that's what make up that, pretty red color there. All right, we can let them take a look at it, or you can go to the next one because I think it still breaks it down on the next slide, right? Yeah, okay, cool.
I'm just a little bit, my bandwidth is not great today. Sorry, folks. If I disappear on you, Jen, you got this.
All right, and I'm the one with the storm. This is great. All right, so let's see here. So much fun.
In the air, clearly.
Yeah. All right, so the formed elements that make up the blood, you have white blood cells. They are a part of your blood. They are your immune cells. That's what, can detect any pathogens and really get things going. Your lymph nodes still have a very important role in your lymph vessels, obviously, but the white blood cells, about 60 to 80% of them are neutrophils, 20 to 40% are lymphocytes. You have your platelets. This is what's involved in blood clotting. And then, of course, the red blood cells. They bind to oxygen due to a protein called hemoglobin, and Colleen mentioned that before. And they're about 4 to 6 million red blood cells, or erythrocytes. And oh, I forget. I left my note and I lost my train of thought, but that's okay. But going back to the platelets.
A lot to think about.
Yep. When the blood vessel is injured, the platelets adhere to that site and they release those clotting factors to form a platelet plug. And that does prevent excessive bleeding. So there's about, 200 to 500,000 cell fragments that play a role in blood clotting. So, man, this circulatory system, these are big numbers, I tell you. They're just big numbers.
It's working for you all the time, and you don't even know it. Isn't that amazing? Well, until things go off,
universes.
Of course.
Yes.
There's always that. But the more we can work with the system as you're learning, the more things are flowing and the more we can pick up these kind of stagnations and move them out. So let's talk about these capillary beds. We always like to take the A&P, the anatomy and physiology, and kind of break it down. Why is this relevant for Dr. Morse's formulas? Why is this relevant for detoxification? So again, back to these capillary beds. This is ground zero for all the action. You've got that fluid that's in the plasma of your blood, right? And that's carrying oxygen, it's carrying nutrients, and it's coming into this capillary bed, and it's a highly permeable cell wall, these thin little capillary walls. And so that liquid can essentially leak out of the bloodstream and into this interstitial space. So in this interstitial space, you've got all your cells and you've got all your lymphatic capillaries. That's where their capillaries are hanging out too. Also highly permeable. It's kind of pressurized in there too. As the fluid is coming out of the blood and going into the tissues here, there's going to be some pressure that's caused by that. And that pressure is going to push it into lymphatic flow. So not only is it nourishing all those localized cells in the capillary bed and giving them oxygen and giving them nutrients, it's also pushing some of that fluid into the lymphatic flow. Not only that, it's collecting, guess what? Waste product, right? So it's pushing that waste product with the interstitial fluid into the lymphatic flow, and it's also recollecting some of that waste product into and carbon dioxide, number one waste product that we produce, right? We breathe in oxygen, we breathe out carbon dioxide. So we've produced all this waste in the form of carbon dioxide. That interstitial fluid is picking that up. It's re-entering the blood flow. It's also re-entering lymphatic flow. The arteries coming in are pressurized and the veins going out are depressurized or low pressure. And so they're able to kind of pull that fluid out, if that makes sense. So pushing fluid in and then pushing it back out with that low pressure system. Okay, pretty cool stuff that's happening in there. So there's a bunch of things. This is constantly is happening right now. I mean, it's helping. It helps if you are going on walks and don't have a stagnant job and yada yada. Eating healthy, eating your alkaline diet, obviously. So other things that are helping balance the system and kind of pulling all these concepts together is blood pressure regulation. So remember, you've got all this fluid in your body because you're so hydrated from your fruits and your veggies and your water that you're drinking. And all that fluid is ideally, all that fluid is living inside your body and it's causing pressure. So if your kidneys aren't online, then you're not removing fluids from the body via kidneys, via sweat, via digestion and bowel movements, then that water is just sitting in there and becoming more and more pressurized, which leads to heart pressure issues. Okay, can you see the picture there? So that's why we're so into detox here, is we really need to get that fluid buildup in these pressurized systems out through all these eliminatory channels using the herbs in the diet. So there's that renal circulation. The kidneys receive their blood from the renal artery. And so I was just totally geeking out on this before we started about how we think about trying to clean the blood, right? And we do the best we can. We've got our kidneys removing waste, we've got our digestion removing waste, and we're breathing out waste, we're sweating out waste. But there's ultimately always going to be waste byproduct in the body, because there's always going to be cells being born and dying. There's always going to be something toxic in your environment. We don't have a perfectly targeted system where we're always grabbing toxins and taking them out. We have to work with this ebb and flow in order to assure that the toxins are kind of continuously being removed, that the waste products are constantly dumping.
Yes.
So this is just a slide that's a bit kind of explaining the difference between hepatic removal, so the liver processing stuff coming from digestion, processing all that blood, versus the renal circulation. And then, of course, there's the bone-blood connection. So you need to have healthy bones in order to have healthy blood, because both white blood cells and red blood cells are born in bone marrow. So just keep that in mind. That's why we oftentimes will add a bone and connective tissue tonic to your protocol, because we want you to be producing healthy blood cells. And
Yes.
We should probably keep moving on, because we have a really special guest right now. So that's the end of the A&P section. Hopefully your minds are ready for a switch in gears,
Again.
as we like to constantly move quickly through these things. So we have a really special guest here, Toni Weel, who is a healer in her own right. She has her whole story that she's going to share with us right now, about kind of how she came to discover Dr. Morse's. She is a health consultant, and she's actually going to be joining the team here. Jen and I do health consults, if you didn't know that, but Toni is also going to be a health consultant here starting the next couple of days. She's going to be starting to take your intakes, and you can meet with her and talk to her about your health goals through going to that 30-minute consultation page on our website. So without further ado, Toni, please introduce yourself and tell us all about you.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to introduce myself. I'm very happy to be here. When I was thinking about what should I tell people about my health journey, and because I always considered myself healthy throughout my whole life, and I did have some pretty bad scares, but up till I think it was about 20 years ago, I had to admit I was not healthy at all. I had so many problems, and one thing that was throughout my whole life from a young teen was my weight. And I had been on medication when I was 16. I lost a lot of weight then, and then got pregnant. And since then, I was yo-yoing throughout my whole life. And eventually, I just gave up on this. I'm not going to do this anymore. I was always on a pretty healthy diet, healthy, like macrobiotic. Now we know it wasn't that healthy at all. That wholesome foods with all the grains and the beans, it wasn't that healthy. And there wasn't a lot of fruit in there. It was, veggies, but grains, a lot of proteins. So I kept yo-yoing until I gave it up. And that's about around the time that I met Dr. Morse. But there is more to it, because I had to look back on everything that had happened in my life. And I found that, or I learned finally from my mother, that I wasn't even born healthy, but they considered me healthy. They had an expression for it, and it's called, I'm Dutch, by the way, I'm from the Netherlands. It's called Hollands glory. That was, you were kind of plump, and I had red hair and freckles, and I was, these rosy cheeks, and but I was overweight. I wasn't healthy at all. I had things like ear infections constantly, constipation, jaundice, problems with bowels, sluggish thyroid, and I had 3 concussions before I was 14. spelled clumsy because I was growing way too fast. At 12 years old, I was 5'9". I mean, but then it
I can
stopped.
relate. I can relate.
Yeah, Colleen can relate.
I'm very tall from a very young age.
Yeah. So I had a gallbladder removal at like 19. At 22, I was paralyzed from the neck down after binging on things like alcohol and sugar and fats, which I never did, but that was a very stressful time. So I was like, the heck with it. But my body responded. But at that time, I had no clue. So I kept figuring it out, trying to figure out what diet to use. And I even tried Atkins of all things, and I was not even a meat eater. So that I gave that up. Not well. And I think in about a few months, I tried Montignac. It was not so. It was more about food combining. It was not so popular here, maybe, but in Europe it was. And I had these really bad lower back hernias, very painful. But I was not into any medication at all or going to doctors. So I was like, just going on with my life, which I did. And, as soon as it was over, I was like, okay, I'm fine, and there's no problem. I didn't know what else you could do. Although, but that time I was still, concerned about my weight. Well, because, who likes to be overweight? I didn't. But I was doing all my things. I was a fashion designer, had my own little boutique with my and my own label. And after, I think it was 23 years, I started riding a motorcycle all over the United States. I started in a travel company, a travel magazine, motorcycle travel magazine. I did so many things. And so the weight in my back issues never held me back. I did whatever I wanted to do. So that was a good thing. But I kept saying to myself and to others, I'm healthy. And maybe that helped me actually, because what you think is very important. But I also had my, later on when I got really sick, and that was after immigration. And you probably know what you need to immigrate. These I don't even know if I can mention it, but it was for polio and for a few other things, and that is when everything went downhill for me. And skin issues, liver issues. What else? I had a heart attack.
Nonchalant. Had a heart attack.
Yeah. And it wasn't even, doctors were surprised, like, oh, you have no arteries are clogged, so we don't know what it is or why it is. And I was like, I need to get out of here. But, they did a CT scan with the dye, and you know what that can do. And I woke up and I was like, something changed in my brain. And this is where I really had to admit I was getting very sick. And I struggled, but I didn't take the medication. I took the heart drops, and those are similar as what Dr. Morse formulas is. That helped me through it, but after a while I stopped. So 3 years later, not a heart attack. Didn't go to the hospital this time, but I cannot suggest anyone to do that. It's just what I had to do. And again, back to the heart drops, and that helped me get through. And I didn't have the same problems that I had that whole year after the first one. So it was quite a journey, and I was like, this must be related to diet. I was looking into it again. I followed several beautiful people. I won't mention names, but they make videos. They're really beautiful people and have good information, but they not quite get it. And after 18 months of using, what is the stuff? Celery juice. I was big on that. 18 months. Well, it kind of wrecked my digestive system. And I was so sick, I was bedridden. At that time, I was already on a raw vegan diet. So, because I did make that food link, I made that food link when I was in my early 20s, when everybody thought you were crazy. And but I couldn't put it, what exactly is it? What exactly keeps you so sick? I wasn't really into processed foods. Yeah, I did eat out once in a while, and but I made my I loved cooking, and I even wanted to be a raw chef at some point, but I was too sick. I couldn't even do that. Now, I tell you what my raw diet was. It was a lot of, I ate greens and I did juices. Fruit, no, because nobody told me about that then. And so some fruits, but a lot of nuts. You can make the most wonderful sauces with cashews and like cream cheese pies and I made the crackers. I made the what is it? I made the crackers actually from with the seeds and some nuts, and then the pulp from the juices. So I was still getting the pulp, and of course nut butters. And I made everything myself, and I thought I was doing great. Well, when you get bedridden and you can't walk anymore, you're not doing great. And at that point, it was that I all of a sudden Dr. Morse videos popped up in front of me, and I started listening. And I started binge watching, like, 5, 6 videos, and they were long videos. They were more than an hour every day. And it was like 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, my joint pain was gone. And I have also, I forgot something to mention. When you go to feeling that you're not sick, you're fine, everything will be fine until you have to admit you're not. And when you're bedridden and you can't walk and you have to use a wheelchair, you realize that, life as I knew it, and life for me was over. I was getting depressed. I was feeling like I don't need to wake up anymore. And I have this most gorgeous, sweet husband, and I, have an amazing relationship. And it was like, you're crazy. So it was like when I started leaving out the nuts, the seeds, the avocado, the coconut meats. What else was there? Yeah, well, of course, the nuts and the seeds. I already mentioned that. But when I left out the high fats and the proteins, it was like a black cloud was lifted. I started feeling so much better, so fast. That is unbelievable. And things started to make sense again, and I got most of my mobility back. Now I have to say I already had the results of having severe joint issues. That is still, still lingering today, so I'm working on that. But it was a few months that I was using it. I was happy. I learned about the courses, and I was like, I have to do this. I hadn't worked at that time for 8 years. I barely had the money, but I had to do it. It was like there was no ifs or buts about it. I was going to do that course, and money showed up. You know how that goes.
Yep.
And right after I had to do the level 2 because that was the last live classes 2019.
Yep.
Had to be there and had to hug Dr. Morse and tell him he actually saved my life. And so yeah, I did all the courses and started working in taking over the admin, or actually, yeah, being the admin in a very large Facebook group where I learned a lot. There are so many people struggling with the same things as what I went through. And I didn't even mention, the childhood trauma that, of course, it affects your life. It affected my
100%.
health back then.
Yeah.
You can't ignore it as long as you want, but it will always come back, and it can even affect you as an adult. And it did for me. So this is where I love helping people and listening to them and, what is going on in their lives and what we can do. So I see myself pretty much as a tour guide on their journey, being there whenever it's needed and getting them to a better health. And for me, I realized there is no way back. You cannot go back to what you were doing or what actually caused the problems in the first place. And I talked with Jennifer and Colleen about growing my own food, and they found it very interested, so I have to mention it. Um, when, it was about probably 10 years ago that I first heard about people eating only fruit. A young couple was traveling the world, and whatever, there was a lot of fruit in season in that country, they stayed there and ate it. And I was like, well, that's interesting. I wish I could do that. At that time, I couldn't. But it was actually not until, and even though, Dr. Morse is always, it's fruit, berries, melons, and but I had to grow things myself. So I live in an area where you can't put it in the ground, you can't put it in pots. So, okay. So I have all this around my house, all these potted fruit things, and the first one was actually dates. Was it dates?
Nice.
Was it dates? No, it was the figs. It was figs. It was a small fig tree.
Okay.
Sorry. And so when it had a few fruits on it, and I was like, oh, this is neat, feeling. And hey, one fell in my hand, and I was like, too soft. Let's see how it tastes. Because I only had dried figs, never a fresh one. And
Wow. Game
so
changer.
it was absolutely perfect. And I left another one on. And the next day I saw that it had burst open and already critters were getting in. Another one had fallen off and other critters were eating it. And I experienced the same with a mango tree and with a papaya, with a pineapple. I was just a little bit too late with the pineapple. I had smelled it for days and I was, oh my God, I need to get it. Well, it was only the outside was there. Whatever was inside was already gone. So that, yeah, so here I got like, the fruit is there for us when it is right, not when you have to really pull it off the branch or whatever it's holding it, and it's not ripe and it has no taste. And I can tell you, my mangoes are the sweetest, dark and juicy.
I want one. You're so
Yeah.
lucky you can grow mangoes and pineapples and papayas. I'm so jealous.
Yeah, well, it's not, I couldn't live off of it, but I had the experience of trying it out because one mango tree with maybe 30 mangoes won't feed you for long.
No, that's right. Good point.
But it is. I found this so amazing that I know the fruit is there for us. And I have I'll be short. A story about herbs. How I really know that herbs are here for us is that when I long time ago I bought a house in the Netherlands and it had certain flowers all over the yard. The next year, those flowers were all gone and different flowers showed up. Later on, I learned that wherever you are, the right herbs will grow there for you.
Yes, indeed.
Now, it's going to be difficult if you live in the city, but I saw that and it was amazing. And I knew I needed more calcium, so the nettle showed up, the dandelions.
Oh, yeah, so good.
Which actually in the Netherlands is called paardenbloem, which is translated horseflower. I don't know why.
Horses love to eat it, probably.
Yeah,
It's
I like
dente
dandelion.
leon in Spanish. It's dente leon, which is the lion's tooth because
Oh
of
my God.
the leaf structure. It's like a lion's tooth. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's one other thing that I need to mention because we hear that from so many people is that I was pretty much the queen of supplements. And with supplements, I mean that everything, because all these people that show you the diets, often are chiropractors, they all have their own line of supplements. And I went to naturopath, holistic doctors, and they all told me what I need to take. Well, at some point, it got that I took 3 times a day, like 15 pills.
Eek.
And And it
Yeah.
was like, I spent $500 a month at least. It was more important to me than food.
Mm.
And when I heard from Dr. Morse, it is isolated chemistry. You do more harm than you good for your body. I left it. I threw it all out. Well, after a while, I threw it all out. And I have not looked back. And, well, I'm still here and didn't die because I didn't take them.
Yep.
And you are
Yeah.
actually pretty much been told you need to take that for the rest of your life. So throughout my life, I always took calcium. Always. I always
Mm.
took calcium because I didn't drink milk. I hated milk. But,
Yeah.
I love cheese, which was pretty bad.
Mm.
Pretty bad. So
Oh, awesome.
that's pretty much my story.
Well, thank you,
Awesome.
Toni.
Thanks,
I'm sure
Toni.
many people can relate to that,
Big time.
and yeah, it's definitely very helpful to hear your
I
side of
know.
things.
I
Yep.
just love the fruit falling into your hand. It's such a beautiful image and it's so true to life. And I've lived in fruit forests before. I ended up in an Ecuadorian farm that was owned by a fruitarian. Uh, it was pretty magical, just eating
Awesome.
fruit all day,
Here
every
I am
day.
trying to keep my basil plant alive behind me.
That's the thing. And then you live somewhere where I live
Getting better
now,
now.
where we have seasons. We
Yeah.
have a hard time growing fruit in the winter. I mean, you're pretty much stuck
Yep.
with citrus. So,
Yep.
thank you, global food production, I guess. I get a lot of fruit from Mexico. Try to eat organic as much as you can. Okay, well, we
Absolutely.
have,
Thanks, Toni.
yeah, thanks again, Toni. So again,
Thank
you can go to our website to the 30-minute consults and you can choose Toni as your consultant and she will be calling you to talk
Yes.
through your health goals. How long have you been a health consultant, Toni? It's been years, right?
Well,
With
it
Dr.
has been
Morse's?
5 years now, but I actually started as a health coach. Well, I didn't work in it because what we were taught that was 10 years ago was that there is a diet for every person. And
Yeah.
that is what I learned. And somehow
Hmm.
it didn't make sense to me. So I never worked with people. I just couldn't. I couldn't tell them that. But
Gotcha.
that was quite an intensive course. But I did start working until what I learned with Dr. Morse because that did make sense, and I saw the results, and I think that is very important.
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, because of time, we have to move on, unfortunately. We are at the 15-minute mark, Jen, so we'll have to make
Okay.
this
No, we'll
a
go
little
ahead.
bit quick. But we have
Yep.
4 protocols for you this week for the circulatory system.
Yep. So like always, we kick it off with the general maintenance. And, like Toni made a very good point when she was talking about the fruit at the end, really letting your foods be your medicine. So you do need a good balance of nourishing foods, and some activity to aid the blood flow and support, your other vital body systems that are very key to your circulatory system health. So yeah, you can enjoy herbs along with foods to encourage that blood flow and move nutrients through the body. You got to give your gut some love because you have to aid in the absorption of those nutrients so they can be utilized properly and obviously delivered to where they need to go. And you have to support your kidneys and adrenals to support that healthy blood pressure. So for the protocol, you're looking at, of course, our foundational formulas. You've got something to support your GI tract, your kidneys, and your lymph, and your endocrine system. All of them are in their daily format. But for additional circulatory system maintenance, you can include the blood support with its building herbs and the blood circulation formula.
Yeah.
Yep.
And of course, we actually our heart section on our site is kind of minimal. We have blood support, blood
Mhm.
circulation, strong heart. But we really it's not just about those. It's that
Yeah.
we've talked about this before, Jen, how we're mostly focusing on opening up those channels of elimination, and those are your foundational formulas that you just talked about, those dailies and the lymph, the
Mhm.
GI, the endocrine, and the kidneys. But it's then you're layering onto that with these wonderful heart and circulatory supportive herbs for if that's your specific story. So we're going to meet 2 herbs right now. We've got ginkgo. These are, of course, reused slides because we talk about these slides here and there throughout our webinar series. But
Yep.
ginkgo is a big one for circulation. So it's just like, it's number one. There's just such great kind of science and research behind this herb. It is very commonly used in traditional Chinese medicine. Oftentimes those Eastern herbs are more studied than the Western herbs, but it supports improved circulation. It ensures that significant oxygen and nutrients reach different parts of the body, including the pancreas. And some studies suggest that ginkgo supports healthy blood sugar levels as well. It's also a well-known backpacker's companion for gaining altitude. So yeah, it's really specific to also circulation into the brain. So we oftentimes are adding it to our cognitive formulas for memory and focus. And of course, it's in not only blood circulation and happy caps and pituitary support, but it's also in that brain and nervous system formula for that reason. And then we've got Schizandra, which I love. It's an adaptogen. It's a high antioxidant herb because of the flavonoids. It also has this schizandrin, which is believed to have adaptogenic properties, another highly studied herb. You can find some really great studies. I actually have some linked here on this slide. So it helps the body to adapt to various stressors and maintain balance. Schizandrin is thought to interact with neurotransmitters systems in the brain, including the GABA receptor, right? And so it supports a calmer state of mind and improves stress management. That's a lot of adaptogens, but not all adaptogens target the same neurotransmitters. So that's helpful and specific. And studies show that it generates alterations in the basal levels of nitric oxide and cortisol in the blood and saliva, which subsequently affect the blood cells, vessels, and the central nervous system. So it's just really nourishing in that way. It also has been shown to support healthy blood coagulation. Okay, so there's a study I found specifically on women taking it pre-partum for postpartum recovery. So yeah, imagine there's, you can imagine there's some hemorrhaging that can happen postpartum, and they saw really good results with Schizandra. So it's in a lot of formulas. Dr. Morse loves this herb. It's an endocrine daily, pituitary support, thyroid support, male reproductive tonic, happy caps, and high energy by nature. Okay.
Yeah. Awesome.
So that's general maintenance.
Yep. And now we got heart rhythm abnormalities, and this is a very generic phrase for a lot of things. Your sinus rhythm isn't normal. Okay. So let's just say that. So regulating heart rate is very important for your overall health and just for you to, exist here to keep watching this. The signals between your atria and ventricles are important for the heart to function. So yeah, your heart rate abnormalities can certainly vary in severity. I mean, I've had, very, very mild palpitations, but I've had a family with very, very large problems. Both, my mother-in-law was one of them. So how do you help your heart? Well, yeah, obviously a healthy and more alkaline diet you can have, the better. Avoid alcohol and smoking. They are acidic. Get enough sleep. You need to manage your stress. And remember our general protocol with layering and supporting other systems. So you'll always see, again, that kidney and bladder, lymph drainage, something for the endocrine system. So you have to keep these heart rhythms, normal. You have to have an important balance of minerals, calcium, magnesium, potassium, sodium. They're all very important in the normal cardiac contract and relaxed rhythm. So consider the adrenal formula for that. The strong heart is our primary formula for the heart. It contains supportive herbs that are good for the entire cardiovascular system, but also supporting those heart muscles, because and think about it, they're contracting under tremendous pressure. Those arteries are under tremendous pressure too. And then of course you have the blood circulation it's a nice warm formula to keep that blood flowing. And these unique sensations, that fluttering, and I get that fluttering would be so weird. The spasm calm is pretty helpful in that case. You really don't ignore them. There are times you have to get them evaluated by a healthcare professional. But when you think about it, if you do it, you at least know the direction you can go and how better to support your body with the knowledge of the diet you get, listening to these webinars and the videos, and also the herbs, which Colleen will go over a couple. Like if you need them.
We love talking about the herbs. Yeah, she's painting this picture for you of there's a correlation for sure with heart rhythm and fight or flight and chronic stress, right? So just consider that spasm calm is there to really calm you down. I think Dr. Morse originally created it more for spasming in the musculoskeletal tissues and any pain there. But it's really great. It's got a lot of really good nervous system supportive herbs that are very calming. And it also has lobelia in it. You'll hear us talk about that a bunch next month in our respiratory series.
Yes.
But lobelia is a bronchodilator. It's really good for like acute panic and stress. So there's that. And so then, yeah, it's a good one. And so then you've got Hawthorne. It's kind of the, I'd say this is the mascot of today, because Hawthorne berry, flower, and leaf are all used for supporting the cardiovascular system, specifically the heart and the heart muscle. And it's in strong heart and blood circulation. So, it's got those proanthocyanins, those flavonoids, which are, of course, antioxidants. So that's just kind of the antioxidant compounds are found in Hawthorne, support the heart by reducing oxidative stress and supporting healthy inflammatory levels in the body and the blood vessels. They fortify blood flow and relaxation of the blood vessels, and they ultimately promote healthy blood pressure. So there you have it right there. It's an amazing herb. There's actually really interesting studies that show that it is so safe that it's often taken with some over-the-counter or pharmaceuticals like statins, and you're not seeing any particular variation in the efficacy of your pharmaceuticals while also taking Hawthorne. I can't say that for the strong heart formula because it has a lot of other herbs in it, but if you were to just do a syrup of Hawthorne berry or take a Hawthorne berry extract, pretty much across the board for most heart imbalances, it's still safe to use, which is pretty special.
And it's a pretty color.
And it's a pretty color, yeah. And it's
sorry.
It's a hip. It's a hip, not a berry, actually. It's like a rose hip.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Even though I call it a berry. Okay, so Motherwort. I want to talk about these herbs for so long and I don't have time. It's a mint family member. I personally love Motherwort as a mother. There's just this, I'll just read this because I think it goes into why it's so great. Let's see, supports the release of anxious tension that accompanies stress and overwhelm, not just on a physical level, but also on an emotional level that may be at their root. We were talking about that earlier with kind of family trauma. Alkaloids in this herb make it mildly vasodilating, and it's got bioactive alkaloids found in Motherwort that are believed to help relax blood vessels, support blood flow in the heart, and it's like a mother's hug. Someone once described it to me. The name, the Leonaris cardiaca, which is the Latin name for it, means lion tail heart. So something about like being a lion and having that courage of a lion. And I can speak from the mother's perspective of how there is so much overwhelm when you're a mom and when you're trying to also work and just manage a house or whatever it is that you're doing as a mom. There's such a huge amount of overwhelm, and Motherwort is incredibly nourishing to that. It's almost like, especially if you didn't have that compass when you were born, and maybe you didn't have a mother that was as present and helpful in your lifespan, this is kind of healing that and holding you in that space and giving you that courage that might not be there on a foundational level from the way that you were potentially raised. So deep, I know, but it's a really special herb that you don't hear a lot about. So figured I'd go there.
I think everybody listening welcomes that. So
yeah, right. I agree. I'm in good company.
Yes.
Next one.
So we go from hugging to fortifying, and we're going to talk about the blood again, and try to recall back earlier when we were talking about red blood cells or the erythrocytes. I'm glad you get most of the big words that carry oxygen, gases, and nutrients through the body.
I didn't even say that word because I was worried about pronouncing it wrong.
Oh, this is where I had my note. Red blood cells live for about 120 days, so they don't really have a long life cycle. So again, like what Colleen was talking about, you're constantly detoxifying. You're constantly making cells, cleaning, moving stuff out, nourishing the tissues, and then repeat. So the blood, we have to support the blood because it transports oxygen from the lungs to the cells for metabolism, carries those nutrients and hormones, your immune cells and platelets, helps regulate, the body's temperature too. Honestly. So when so we're going to look at, again, the foundational formulas. You have your kidney and bladder hydrate, your lymph drainage gentle mover. So again, going back, you see how the life cycle of the red blood cell summarizes how other body systems that require attention support, healthy blood cell levels. The herbal protocol to assist the kidneys, endocrine system, immune system, and natural functions, that all reinforces that normal blood cell production. So liver skin's included in this protocol for its role in the red blood cell life cycle, because it does remove wastes, and blood support is recommended because of its role in fortifying the blood, the ultimate immune for its lymph and immune response as well with those particular herbs. And I know you're going to be talking about some very important, not so much herb next.
Not so much herb, right? So this is in Ultimate Immune and Bone and Connective Tissue Support, no surprise. But this is deer antler, and I will mention here, so it's in those two formulas, and Dr. Morse put it in because it's a really good builder. It's really high in nutrients. It's got iron, it's got protein, it's got zinc, it's got polysaccharides, which are builders for all of that. We talk about the building of the immune system, the building of blood. Polysaccharides are those basic, I can't describe them on a chemical level, but they're a simple sugar that's a builder. And so we need those to kind of build everything else off of. So really important in that way. And the thing about the antler is we are using sustainable sources for this, because there's a lot of both research out there and history of use of deer antler velvet. And you'll see that a lot in traditional Chinese medicine, but you have to put the animals through a lot of stress to harvest their velvet. And so we don't do that. We're actually sourcing our antlers from the forest floor. So once the deer shed them, which they do every year, they are harvested and brought to whatever facility, we supply them from. And so that is something you need to know. So, they aren't technically a vegan product, but they are also really wonderfully sustainably sourced. So, check those two formulas out for that. And then burdock. Burdock, I was just reading about and found a really cool study on how burdock and dandelion root together show a synergistic effect when taken in combination in curing, I don't know if I can say that word, in supporting the absorption of iron. So I didn't take it out. So in supporting the absorption of iron more proficiently from your dietary foods. So really great to just make sure you're taking your burdock and your dandelion. Burdock and dandelion are both in our liver skin formula, which is part of this protocol. You can also find burdock in kidneys and bladder drain and blood support.
Yep. And last protocol, hang in there. We're almost done. This is a big one for a lot of you because we've again, certain medical terminology we cannot say. So we're going to say vascular integrity. And this is referring to the integrity, the function, the health and strength of your vascular walls, of your circulatory system. And you think about it, the arteries are pretty dense as far as their connective tissue, very strong because of the pressure that they're under. The veins, not so much. That's why you see some very pronounced veins maybe in your legs. So
lax vein tonification.
Tonification. That's normally a tongue twister for me. I'm surprised I got that one out. It's because I had to repeat it from you. Okay. So here we go. So besides adding, of course, your therapeutics like walking, don't be so sedentary like us work from home people, rebounding, leg elevations and massage, adding all that into your weekly routine to support that venous return. What can you do? Okay. We have the kidney bladder daily. Lymph drainage super remover, and of course blood circulation. That's pretty much shown up to some degree in every protocol, but the action of the lymphatic formula is supported by the diuretics in the natural diuretics in the kidney and bladder drain that encourages the flow and detoxification from stagnant areas that contribute to this vascular insufficiency. And again, paired with blood circulation, and then bone and connective tissue here is also added to support healthy blood, and the venous integrity can also be helped topically. And this was, I'm glad you put this in here and we talked about it, Colleen, because I didn't even consider this, the ultimate salve.
Topicals for vein deficiency, absolutely.
Never would have considered that because I've always used it for being a total klutz. I don't go anywhere without it. So yeah, promote that tightening and tonifying of the veins from the outside in. Of course, we have to hydrate and strengthen from within, but from the outside, that salve, I mean, tell you, it's amazing for so many things and absorbs really well. So give that a consideration. I think, I might give it a whirl.
We're really driving home that kidney bladder drain on this slide, huh? double down on your kidney bladder drain. No, probably not. But it is worth mentioning here that the kidneys and bladder, and I think actually this was on a previous slide, I didn't even bring it up, but when we do a super mover or a gentle mover with the lymphatic drainage formula, we always pair it with 2 kidney and bladder formulas, because when the lymph is moving that intensely and you're dumping all that excess lymph back into circulatory flow and down to the kidneys for elimination, you really need your kidneys to be online so that that portal is open, that eliminatory channel is wide open to receive and eliminate. So it would be kidney and bladder drain, which is a diuretic, and then something like our kidney and bladder, I believe it's our daily, which is more of a kind of toning, long-term tonic formula for the kidneys. Okay. We are at time, so sorry if you need to go. We will be at that beautiful slide with the discount codes in a moment, but if you can't wait around for that, you can always wait for the email that will be coming into your inbox after this presentation, and that will have the discount codes and the link to the webpage that has all of the discounted products. So white oak is incredibly tannin rich, and so it's very astringent, and we love astringency when we're talking about lax tissue. So so you could try to use some of these formulas topically, just, you know, the alcohol component is actually astringent as well, but you could use some of these tonically. You could just make an extract of oat bark and use that topically for vein sufficiency. Generally, when you've got a kind of heavy vein in the leg, it's harder to reverse those, but we're talking preventative care here. So moving forward, how can you prevent this from happening again? Okay, so you've got the oak there, which you can get out of your blood support and your blood circulation formulas. It's toning the tissues from within. And then you also have this horsetail, which is in bone and connective tissue tonic support, so that's why we added that one to this protocol, because it is high in silica, and silica is the material of which collagen is made. And so it helps to bind protein molecules together in the blood vessel and in connective tissue. So it is giving you that structural component to what develops healthy tissue. So to kind of reinforce the lining of those cell walls within those veins, you are going to want the silica-rich herb, which is going to kind of wash over those tissues and help them rebuild, if that makes sense. Okay, yes. It's also diuretic and astringent. It's helping with that diuretic component. It's also helping with eliminating any excess fluids in the body, which can also cause some of that stagnation. Okay, so
by the way.
Yeah.
So for personal use, I know that.
It's absolutely true. Diuretics make you pee. Natural diuretics is what we're talking about here, not over-the-counter diuretics.
Yes.
You want to give this, let's give it another, let's go to 205. I think we can speak to these for just a moment.
Okay. Yeah. So because I do think this is important. So you need to give this a try at least once or twice a day, even if you don't have any problems. Like Colleen was saying, this is, preventative. But if you do, find a way to work, around your work schedules. If you're not at home, it's beneficial to all. Some may benefit more depending on what needs to be addressed. But let's say you have some fluid retention in your legs. Elevate your legs above your heart for 30 minutes, 3 to 4 times a day. You don't have to lay on the floor against the wall like this lady. If you can do that, great. But if you've got a bed with like a headboard or it's up against the wall, go ahead and do that. That's fine. Or if you've got a ton of pillows on your bed, go ahead and do that way.
I also do it in a sauna. If you're into sauning or steaming, I like to do it in the sauna because there's usually nobody in there.
Very relaxing.
Yeah.
It does.
So, heart rate variability. We don't have time to talk about this really, but we do want to talk about HeartMath, which is a great resource for you all. You can go to HeartMath and they have a whole website talking about heart rate variability. The more your heart rate fluctuates, that's a good thing. The more variable it is, it means your heart is healthy. So you want a high heart rate variability. And now there are actually apps that will track this on your watch. And there's probably others, but that's the one I can think of. And so goals for getting a higher heart rate variability are deep breathing and relaxation techniques, regular aortic exercise, healthy sleep, stress management, healthy diet. You know the drill. We just talked about it for the last hour. So so there's that. And then with HeartMath, is there a slide on this? Yeah. With heart electromagnetism, what we're finding when we are looking at people with an electromagnetic reader, you're seeing that your heart is pulsing beyond your body, that it's such a powerful organ and it's such a powerful forced with that electromagnetism, that you're actually pulsing outside of your body. So your aura, or whatever that frequency is that you are pulsing in your body, is actually going outside of yourself and is connecting to the larger grid that is all of us, that is this world, that is the people in your family, in your home, that is the people that you ride on the bus with. So it's all about, what are you feeding the grid today? So give yourself a moment to pause. And if you are having a lot of internal turmoil, if you are carrying a lot of negativity, it's not just you that's experiencing it. You're actually, people can sense that around you. So consider
Oh,
that.
fascinating.
What did you
Yeah.
feed the grid today? Yes, also that. So we do really appreciate you all, especially those of you who stuck with us till the end. We love
Yes.
you. We're so glad you're here with us. If you have any feedback on these webinars and what you want to hear, or what you aren't hearing, or just kind of general feedback, we would love to hear it at info@dmhhc.com. So
Yes.
thanks again.
Thanks, everyone. Have a nice evening or afternoon, wherever you're at.